How many more times is it my fault? Is it my grandkids' fault too? Is it my grandkids' fault too?
Your fault.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I'm saying I'm just saying generationally. I understand it's about equality and like, hey, these certain people were oppressed. You can fucking look it up in anywhere, and it's not. No one's denying it. I'm just saying like, it's not my fault, but it was my fault.
It wasn't your fault.
Hey, I could be Irish. I might be clear, but it had nothing to do with me or my grandpa. I know my grandpa. He wasn't on that shit. So it's like, is it my grandkids' fault too? And I'm already here doing this, just chilling.
I think you're missing the point.
I'm not missing the point. I'm just going another route. I'm just asking, like when
Oh, you're asking the question.
The question is when does that end? When is it not my fault?
Yeah.
Like when do you guys say it's not my fault?
Like it's not the white people's fault that we're.
Well, no, it's not the fact that it's not white people's fault. It's the current white people. The current white people. Because they haven't done a fucking thing. My grandpa was 80, 90 years old, and he didn't do a fucking thing. My dad didn't do a thing. My son, I don't see him owning any. What about my grandson? You know what I'm saying? When is it? Hey, Bastion the Third, it's not your fault.
I mean,
like when does that happen?
Hi everyone. There is this rhetoric that I've been told for many times, and it's becoming to form a notion whereby some few believe in it and while the others are saying it is not correct. It is the issue of reparation. A lot of the people believe that if the Asians, Chinese, and all the people that served in the building of America and some other part of the world, if they could be given reparation, even some white folks that were actually the people that participated in trading that time, if they could be given some amount of money after they've conducted the business, how much more the people that were actually at the receiving end. And this conversation has become global, and today it looks like the government of the power that be, they're not ready to do the needful, because a lot of conversation has held and people are saying if others were given reparation, that the black folks also deserve to be given reparation. And it has been a back and forth argumentation, and a lot of views and dimensions began to play in. But before I say any of that, I have my observation as well, but I'm not going to say anything now. I want you guys to watch this video that I've put together for you guys so that you can watch and begin to form your opinion and conversation after you've watched this video, because we have a lot to unpack. Meanwhile, credit is given to all content creators whose videos are used on this platform. Don't go nowhere. And of course, if you love this great content, do me a favor by liking and subscribing to this channel. And I'll be right back. Don't go nowhere.
Why is a person that never was a slave deserve compensation from a person that never owned a slave?
The fact that this question is coming from a person of color makes this all the more despicable. But since you've shown the world how little you know about history and finances in this country, let me help you out just a little bit. And you don't need a college education to know this, maybe high school at the very least. You ready? The same way that generational wealth can be passed down through generations, generational debt can also be passed down through generations. If the descendants of slave owners who created these multi-billion-dollar financial institutions off of the free, back-breaking, unending 4 centuries, 12 to 16 generations of chattel slavery, is still benefiting from that wealth today in 2025, then why shouldn't the descendants of those slaves be able to have the debt paid to them that was never paid to their ancestors? It doesn't matter if the people now didn't own the slaves. What matters is that they are still benefiting from the wealth that was created because of those slaves who were never paid. Do you understand that? This is not rocket science, my friend. It's common sense, and clearly you're showing the world that you're void of it. And I'm not really sure what you're hoping to get out of this, but if you think you're pandering pick me ass behavior is going to get those same descendants of that generational wealth to give you a few dollars, then you have truly lost your mind. You will never be picked. You will never be in the situation that black people are in today to be owed that generational debt. Because your ancestors, unless you are the descendants of African slaves, did not survive these horrific atrocities only to never be compensated. Baby, we didn't even get the 40 acres and the mule that was promised to us. But guess who did get paid for the losses that they incurred? I'm just going to go ahead on and tell you, because if you're asking this question, you're never going to be able to figure it out. The slave owners, which provided more wealth that they were able to invest and turn into business, multiply exponentially, and pass down through generations. I hope that helps you.
Hello. I'm going to go ahead and assume that this question is not genuine solely based on the other comments that you have left. However, I would love, nonetheless, an opportunity to try to educate you or anyone else watching this who believes that paying reparations to Black people is somehow this grandiose, asinine idea. Firstly, your comment signals to me that you are not on an active anti-racism journey. Because if you were truly aware of just how deep the systematic racism is in the US and how Black people today can still be feeling the effects of slavery without ever having been enslaved, you would be angry. You would want to do something about it. And with that knowledge, you would absolutely be on board for reparations, no question. And I understand not being on board with reparations because there was a time when I wasn't on board with reparations. Several years ago, I would have acknowledged how egregious slavery was. I would have acknowledged that I have white privilege. I would have agreed that racism still exists and affects Black people today. But where I drew the line was reparations. My thinking back then was, why should I, as a white person who was never an enslaver, have to pay taxes or whatever the system would be to Black people today who were never enslaved? But the reason that I had that stance was out of sheer ignorance. It was because I was missing some very crucial pieces to the puzzle and couldn't see the whole picture. I wasn't educated enough on how deeply slavery has impacted generation after generation and is still impacting Black people today. And once I gained that knowledge, learning from Black people, might I add, something clicked and now I'm on board with reparations. Not so fun fact, did you know that DC enslavers got reparations after the emancipation? Yeah, $300 per person to offset their loss of enslaved peoples. So post-slavery, there were some white people getting paid, but not the Black people who were enslaved. Also, not so fun fact, did you know that white families have 10 times the amount of wealth as Black families? And that wealth gap is not because white people are smarter, it's not because white people work harder, and it's not because white people picked themselves up by their bootstraps and Black people didn't. It's because throughout history, white people and white families have been allowed to accrue wealth while Black people have been stripped of it. Reparations is a necessary and crucial piece of healing that is hundreds of years overdue. And not just for descendants of enslaved peoples, but for all of us.
So you really thought slavery ended in 1865? Be so for real. Slavery continued well into the 60s for Black Americans under something called peonage. Let's get into it. And before you get upset with me, you can research it yourself. These are not my personal opinions, these are fact. Slavery was abolished with the 13th Amendment, yes, but there is a clause that states it's illegal except for punishment of a crime. So you already know what happened next. Black people got arrested for anything. Vagrancy, not having a job, talking back, you name it. They were leased to plantations, railroad, and mines under something called convict leasing. And even folks that weren't arrested got trapped into the system of peonage. A white landowner or a farm owner could say, hey, you owe me for that mule I let you borrow or that tool I let you use. And next thing you know, you're trapped in this endless debt. And every time you think you've paid it off, the bar has been moved a little bit further and it's another year on the farm. And this was happening throughout the 1900s up until the 60s, especially in places like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. Some people were even born into this debt slavery system and never escaped from it. It took federal investigations like the 1940s Department of Justice busts, and even then, it still kept going underground into the 60s. Rebranded slavery is what it was giving. So yeah, I mean, if anyone says that slavery ended, sure babe, but we know the truth. It's just been rebranded as something else. Convict leasing, sharecropping, peonage. It's just under a different name. As always, follow me on IG and You of the Tube under the same username, The Controversial Blonde. And I promise I'll get back to posting regularly again.
Like we watched in the video, some are of the opinion that if my generation knows nothing about the slave trade, why should my generation pay for the slave that he or she does not own? Now, there's something about transgenerational financial capability, which simply means that your forefathers transferred the wealth and it goes down to first, second, and third, and fourth generation to you. If there could be transgenerational wealth from first, second, third, fourth generation downward, there could also be transgenerational poverty. Transgenerational poverty, because you can't say that the people that were in the nitty-gritty, that were involved directly during that era, didn't make fortune. They made a lot of fortune, and those fortune were transferred down to the generation. And of course, let me also remind that those times, there were times whereby the black folks were not allowed to own anything. As a matter of fact, they were not allowed to go to school. They are not allowed to get a good job. So in essence, what I'm saying is this: a lot of opportunities were denied them, and that could also amount to transgenerational poverty being transferred down, just like those at the other side could also transfer wealth that they've gathered, that they've been able to attain or gotten in whatever means that they were involved with that time. I have a story of a lady who said that her grandfather was not very rich, but he was a white man and he was privileged to go to school. That during his time, a lot of colored people were not privileged, were not allowed to go to school. There was a law that said they shouldn't go to schools. He said his grandfather was not rich, but because he was a white person, he had the privilege to raise some fee. He went to school and he was accepted, was given admission, while others were rejected admission. You see the difference. So he was able to go to school, he got a good degree, he applied to get a job and was given a job. He said subsequently, as he began to work, he was able to raise some money and he bought houses, and where he bought houses, blacks were not allowed to get it. So she said, as a result of the laws that were in place that time, that made our grandfather to be able to go to school, get a job, and buy a property. He said by the time it was our turn, that there were 4 or 5 now in the family, grandchildren, that they sold the land, the property, and they made millions of dollars. And each and every one of them, the grandchildren, were able to sort out themselves with the wealth. So what does that mean? It means that if you are denied accessibility to some information, property, education, and all of that, you've been denied a lot of wealth. And this is where the argument becomes very interesting. People are saying you can't say they do not deserve to be given reparation, that they deserve it. And some are also saying it has gone. The great fathers that suffered it, they've gone. Now the black folks should build their life now from the scratch and move on. Well, I feel strongly that if it was done to some people, it should be done to all. Some people were given reparation just because their forefathers were the one that beat railway and do some stuff. They were given some reparation. So what happens when the others, especially the black folks, were denied? Well, these are my thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Let the conversation begin. Well, this video has been done to enlighten people as to knowing what happened, what transpired during the time. And of course, we can build around this information and know that it can only get better. We don't allow such thing that happened in the past now. It can't even happen anymore because things have gotten better. People are enlightened. People know what is good from bad now. And the system put in place can't even allow that to happen anymore. So, but guys, thank you for watching. Like I said, let me know your comments, your view, and your perception at the comment section. Let the conversation begin there. And of course, until I come your way again, don't forget, stay in love, stay in peace, and avoid trouble. Bye for now.